Well, hello, and welcome to Gallifrey's Most Wanted. I'm Ross Aiken. I'm old who.
And I'm Joumana, and I'm, I guess, new who?
New who? Yes,
Or
the new,
old who?
a new who. Yes, well, Joumana, you are a new who because Joumana, I put out the call for guests because um, new series is over, so it's get back into the rotation, and Joumana jumped up and volunteered, and this is the first time we're ever speaking. I think I've seen you floating around the interwebs. I don't.
Mhm.
I'm in like in the not the deep corners, but I sometimes am just peering in and agreeing and sometimes posting sometimes for the podcast. But was your first. Well, tell us your Doctor Who origin story. How did you become a Doctor Who fan?
Right. Well, okay. Most people won't believe this because I have been so deep into it. Um, but I discovered Doctor Who under lockdown during the pandemic. I had never watched anything. I didn't really know anything about it because I only moved to the UK about 10 years ago and didn't watch TV. And I started under lockdown, and the first episode I ever watched was The Woman Who Fell to Earth.
Okay,
Um,
that's not a
yeah,
bad starting point.
yeah. I mean, I watched it and I was like, okay, that's looks like a nice show. It has some heart, and then that was it because it didn't draw me in. And I cannot remember why I then went and randomly bought season 9, and I watched these two episodes that we're gonna talk about today, and I was hooked, like really badly hooked. As soon as I watched it, I was like, this is it. I need to watch. And I binged everything
See, that's the
multiple
joy of Doctor
times,
Who.
the entire New Who. Then I went to Big Finish. I started on the audios. Then I went into the classics. I did all the classics. I've now watched the entire thing multiple times. I'm getting to the part. It's like I am making up for lost
Lost time.
time with a vengeance. But this is my first podcast,
Oh,
so
I'm glad this is your first story, and it's the one, and that's an odd. I have a thing is I've been a Doctor Who fan since 1978, 79. Then I bought all. Yeah, I'm the same way, and I did a deep dive. That's the joy of being a nerd when you discover something like this,
yes.
and that you do it. And the lockdown was good for that. I watched Sapphire and Steel on lockdown, a bunch of other British stuff. So that's good. But season 9, I think that's a neat. You're the first person I know that's your first Who, because that whole rambling thing I said is every people kind of, because nerds and Doctor Who fans and all fans will argue what's better, what's best, and I'm always like, there's no better or best. There's favorite and
Right.
not so favorite, because
Yeah.
everybody's aesthetic taste, what triggers them to be engaged is different, because we're all different. We all have different life stories. I grew up a suburban white kid in Washington. You grew up in Beirut. Two totally different
Oh.
places in this universe, but we have this common thing, and that everybody's every episode of Doctor Who is someone's first episode of Doctor Who.
Mhm.
So I have
Yeah.
one, there are a couple that I really dislike, and people who've listened to the podcast for a long time. Kill the Moon drives me nuts. I despise it. It does not ring true to me. My brother was like, I complained to him, and I was like going, the moon's an egg, and he goes, you've been watching this for 40, 50 years, and now your suspension of disbelief is gone? Because the moon is an egg. There was nothing weirder than and I was like, but everyone's their first, and I'm like that. So before we get deep down, what do you think captured your imagination with this one? Because there's a little bit of leftover from the previous season in the beginning. So when you first viewed this, you didn't know who Missy was. You didn't know.
I didn't know anything. I was catapulted in there. And now it's remarkable because now I watch it again and I'm like, wow, all this stuff. I didn't have the bag. There are so many callbacks in this episode to previous things that I had no idea about. And I was just thrown into this whole world, and completely blind, completely cold turkey. And it's interesting that despite not knowing any of this, I still really latched onto it. Um, and I think it was very basically it goes back to the core of how Capaldi plays the character. And it was for the first time a character that, funnily enough, I can really relate to. He's like basically the 12th Doctor is my spirit animal. I am a grumpy old man with an alien consciousness inside.
A grumpy old Scotsman. My wife will attest to that because I consider myself a Scot because I'm a half, and I am her big grumpus, and our little mean Shih Tzu is her little grumpus. So that is a very Scottish. He is a very Scottish Doctor, that grumpy guy, and I get you. I like that. I like that. That engaged you.
But I think people kind of they see mostly the grumpiness and the rudeness, etc. But to me, it's such a subtle performance, and there's so much depth to it, and I love it so much because there's always a lot more going on under the surface, and whatever he's doing, there is something. It's always the tip of the iceberg. And every time, and this is why I can watch his episodes over and over again, because I can always see deeper into his inner life as he's behaving, however, whether he's behaving very silly, which is usually to cover up for the very serious stuff that is going on underneath, or because he's being, or whether he's being rude and Scottish, because he has different kind of consciousness, which I love. I love that he is playing the Doctor as a proper alien again.
Yeah.
Because I don't like it when it's two humans. Like I don't need a human character that I can relate to on the screen in that way, because then what's the point of the show if it's just another nice guy, and nothing more.
I do prefer the
fact that he's not. Yeah, and he is difficult to read, and I think that is brilliant because you're always left guessing. And I think in these two episodes, they're very subtle and ambiguous, and they really leave you guessing. There's a lot that happens that actually we don't exactly know what happened.
Yeah.
Because it's all in the characters. So that's probably, I'm gonna talk a lot about that as we go.
No, and that's the thing is because it's interesting to me because of all the actors that have been cast in the role, he comes to it with the bigger I want to say the bigger resume. He was the biggest star ever cast. I mean, he's in the Loop and whatever. It's a spin. The political show. He won an Oscar in the 80s. Did you know he's an Oscar winner? For best short film. Yeah,
I did not know.
Yeah, in the late 80s, he won an Oscar for best short film.
Wow.
Yeah, and but he's been around. So he comes in with that, and he does. I love him as a Doctor. I have issues with his seasons, and I'm a huge Moffat's my guy. Moffat is. I'm a Moffat fan. He writes in a certain rhythm. There's a meter. He reminds me very much of Aaron Sorkin, who created West Wing and a bunch of other. He in other films, American President and other things he's done. And A Few Good Men is his big break, his movie, but he did play. But it's about a rhythm and a meter. Josh Whedon has it in Buffy, that it's almost like music, that things move in a certain pattern. The way they speak is a little hyper realistic, and really with Matt and Peter Capaldi, it was definitely geared to their acting styles, and and I think Moffat likes them to be a little more alien, little off kilter. But there's something about Capaldi's performance, especially in this one. Rewatching it, I caught certain things, like I knew that little Davros was in it, and when I got to the end of part 2, I went, oh, I forgot this is how this pays off.
Right.
And how Moffat plays with timey-wimey, that he leans into the time travel where other writers don't. They don't want to I don't want to confuse the audience. I don't find it confusing, but there's these emotional payoffs, and that he's only with Davros for most of the episode, and it is just him and Julian Bleach.
No, is it Julian Bleach, or is it oh God, I forgot his name. Molloy.
Terry Molloy.
Terry Malloy. Isn't it Terry Malloy?
No, in
I
the
could
show.
be.
No, playing Davros in this. No, it's Julian Beach.
It's Julie Milch. Okay.
Okay,
See,
yeah,
I
yeah,
am
yeah.
I'm not.
He nails it. I mean, I remember when they brought him back when he was brought back in Stolen Earth. I could have
Yes.
sworn it was Terry Malloy, but I love Terry
Okay.
Malloy's Davros a great deal. I think it's hard to pick one now because they've been because
I.
Michael Wisher, the original, is
Mhm.
that was my second. No, that was my third Doctor Who story ever. Was Genesis of the Daleks. They showed it over here in the theaters. God, I forget what season was coming to an end, and they put it out over here because it was a Davros story.
Right.
Something happened in the new show, and I dragged my wife to it. She's very nice. She is not a Doctor Who fan, and she sat through Genesis of the Daleks in the theater. But Capaldi brings a layer, and throughout
Mm.
this thing, when he's all frantic a lot, that's the Doctor's defense mechanism to me with
Mhm.
him. The silliness sometimes is him.
Oh,
I'm figuring out how I'm going to get out of this because I'm the doctor,
yes.
but I need to distract the bad guys. So when you get um, the the ending where he tricks the bad guy, it's a
Yes.
surprise to you, but you go, oh no, he did this and this and this and this and all this, and it all
Yeah.
shows.
Misdirection. You know, is.
Yeah, I really liked. I think it's Hetty McDonald is the director of this one, and I think she does a really good job. The Magician's Apprentice and the Witch's Familiar. Stories 901 and 902. Writer Stephen Moffat. Director Hattie MacDonald. Producer Robert Bennett. Executive producer Stephen Moffat. Originally aired September 19th and September 26, 2015. Part 1. The Serpentine Colony Sarf has searched in the entire universe for the Doctor to give him the final message of Davros. However, the Time Lord is nowhere to be found. This is quite serious, as not even the Doctor's closest frenemy, Missy, is able to find him. Adding on to this is the fact she was given his confession dial, which in human terms is the last will and testament of the Doctor. Part 2. The Doctor is trapped in the place that is the nightmare of all Time Lords, Skaro, the home planet of the Daleks. Forced to keep Davros company, the Doctor will be tempted by the dying madman to trying to do something for the greater good of the universe. However, is this really what Davros has intended, or does he have something up his sleeve? Elsewhere, the Doctor's best friend and Clara, Oswald, are figuring out how to rescue him. This synopsis came from the TARDIS Wiki. Thank you, TARDIS Wiki. You're a lovely site for facts, fun, and synopsises. And folks, check it out. So, I mean, let's kind of go to the first one. So, when you were first watching this, you knew who the Doctor was, but you knew her as it just the one episode of Jodie, correct?
Yes. Yes. Basically. So I vaguely knew. I
So,
very
yeah, but you
vaguely knew
hadn't seen the
the
TARDIS.
concept.
But you knew
Hmm?
what, I mean, you live in England, you knew what a TARDIS was. Had you, because that
Yeah.
part,
By that, I I must have known by then what a TARDIS was for sure. And I knew what a Dalek was because during the pandemic there was this hilarious footage of somebody who who went in a Dalek on the street shouting at people, "Humans stay indoors."
oh, I remember that. I loved
And
it.
this made the news. And I think that was one of the things that really intrigued me. I was like, this show seems to be a thing. I need to I need to find out what's going on.
I, I like to hear how people learn it, discover it, and I mean, I've had guests from all over the world, but you're the first person um, who isn't from a predominantly former English colony like the rest of it, So,
Right. Yeah.
we get a lot. I grew up on Masterpiece Theater, which is where on PBS, which is where British dramas end up over here before streaming. That's the only place you got to see British television was on public broadcasting on Masterpiece Theater or Masterpiece Mystery. So I grew up on all the Hercule Poirot and all the things. But I mean, the timing device on most computers is called TARDIS. And in early computers, yeah, it had a little police box icon for a long time. I think that may be gone because that was years and years ago. But I mean, I see you have a little TARDIS behind you on the wall.
I do. I yes.
Yes, I have
I
26. I
got
have
it.
26 TARDISes in my house.
It's the only piece of merch that I allowed myself to buy because I don't have any space.
Yeah, yeah,
I'm
yeah.
really struggling with space. I can't afford to collect stuff, so I was like, I just want one TARDIS.
That's
And I don't want it to be plastic.
yeah. I've sold a few because I just was like, I just need, I'm good. And I have a little man cave which is full of comic books and
Right.
sci-fi in my apartment. So when my wife doesn't want to be subjected to it, she doesn't have to. But I wanted to see because it is so iconic. In America, you say Doctor Who and people think Tom Baker, even now, or David
Right.
Tennant. That's it.
Yeah.
But it is big. It's bigger over here now since 2005, and then the pandemic had got another boost because of the same reason people wanted things to binge. So I'd
Yeah.
kind of like to see how you absorb it. So you see him in this town. I mean, I'm more intrigued to see how. When did you get it? Were you almost hooked into the story immediately, or did you kind of have to? When did you know you'd been grabbed? Because like you said, there's callbacks to stuff decades too. I mean,
Oh yeah.
when did it kind of click in the story?
By the end of the second part, I knew I was hooked, and it's all but because I'm very much about character dynamics. So even if I don't know the characters, if I see some really interesting character interactions and very good acting, then I get hooked. And this one, I just found it so rewarding on so many levels. And now it's a bit difficult for me to go back into that original mindset, but I just was so excited. I was so excited. It was going in a direction that I thought it was going in a certain direction, and I was kind of really into it. And then the Doctor just completely blindsided everybody and had this triumphal ending, which I did not see coming. And that was very clever. But also, it's just the humor throughout. There were all these little touches of. It's quite a gritty story, right? We're on Scarrow. It's dark. It's dirty. You can just. It's quite a dark story and setting, but throughout you have these moments of really silly humor that completely stole me over. I was like, this is it. This is exactly my kind of thing. Like when suddenly he's in the middle of all these Daleks, and it's like, of course the real question is, where did I get the tea from?
Yeah.
And the answer is, I'm just a doctor. You just accept it. And I was like, I love this man.
I know. I like that too. I love that scene. I'd forgotten about it.
I absolutely adore this.
I had forgotten all about that scene where he just shows up with a cup of tea, and he's like, and you're wondering, you're not asking about how I came up with a cup of tea.
Right. And he's not even gonna explain. He's just gonna say, oh yeah, just accept it. And I think I'm the doctor. Just accept it is basically the slogan of the show.
Yeah. Oh yeah, you have to, especially
the entire show.
And not that Missy had to grow on me as a master version of the man. I love Michelle Gomez. I do.
Mm-hmm.
She does play a lot of her characters like she plays Missy. There is
Right.
her natural energy and her snarky Glaswegian attitudes toward everything. Because she's in the show Doom Patrol playing a comic book character called Madame Rogue. And she's very similar in that she's not into, she does bad things, but because she doesn't know who she is in that. But she's got some memory loss. But this one, I forgot how you have the parallel stories going. The Doctor and then Missy and Clara on the outside.
Mm-hmm.
And I think Michelle Gomez and Peter Capaldi are a perfect Doctor Master combo. Because one, I think their acting style is similar. And their energy is similar. That they don't stand still. When she's dancing, when they're saying, where is Clara Oswald? And she's dancing to it like it's a song.
Yeah.
Or the pointy stick joke.
Yes.
And then when you get to the Capaldi's finale story, or the two-parter, Bill's final story, kind of. With the Cybermen and her and Sims, that this master is the one who's the most redeemable. That there is something behind Missy when it comes to the Doctor. She's not as in upset if she doesn't kill him. She's like, okay, I didn't kill him. Good. Thank God I didn't kill him. He's my friend, because her and Clara have that thing. Is what is Clara keeps asking, what is he to you? Why are you doing
how can
this?
you be friends? How can you be friends? You fight all the time, and this is like, well, exactly.
And
it's very funny because that is something. Because I've been in this country for a decade, and people here are so polite, and my friends here, they are very uncomfortable at the raised voice, and I keep telling them, you know what? Back home, I know somebody is my friend when we shout at each other. When we can have a fight, I know we're friends. And like I recently met another Arab girl, and within a week of meeting, she was calling me a cow, and I was like, oh my God, that's how I know you love me. You're calling me names. This is good. I can't.
I love that. See, I mean,
right?
I'm an American where we're full of it in a lot of ways. And I'm like the typical American descendant. My dad's parents have only been here 100 years. My dad's family's only been here 100 years. My mother's father's family was an Irish soldier who deserted the English army, joined the Union Army, and died within a month at Gettysburg. And then his family helped found a town in California. And her father ended up becoming an admiral and was in the Second World War. But on her mother's side, we have been here since. Have you ever heard it? Do you all hear of the 1619 Project over there? It's a critical race theory thing. Basically, all American racism starts with the second boat to Jamestown that landed in 1619. And I had some of the people that work for me, African Americans, and well, do you believe in white privilege? And I was like, well, I grew up in a John Hughes movie, which is those 80s scene comedies. And I said, and my 13th grade grandfather was on that boat that brought the first slave. So yeah, I guess there is some. So we're kind of, as Americans think we're all this, but we're all this. We just walk through the world kind of like that. And so the English are so polite, and it's in America. It's the same way. Friends over here, it's like the thing in school. You'd meet someone here. I've met more than one person at school. You butted heads. You got into a fight, and that was it. Okay, we're friends now. We've got all that out. That's all gone.
Yeah.
The pecking order, and that's very much their dynamic, I think, with her, Missy, and him is.
And they do it so well, the two of them. They do it so well, and I mean, even the first time I watched the story, I got immediately that, okay, Missy is clearly the baddie. I didn't know about the Master, but this is clearly the arch enemy, and yet it was totally believable to me that she still wanted to save the Doctor, because like the possessiveness she shows throughout, like even she's clearly jealous of Clara. She wants to get rid of somebody. It's Clara. She's gonna use her to save the Doctor, but she would love to get rid of her because it's her Doctor. She's the one who's meant to kill him, nobody else. It's kind of.
I love that about this one. I didn't remember that much. That aspect of it until I rewatched it this time. I was like, wow, this is really leading up to, because in the next season, when she's his prisoner for the majority of the season, she's more mellow.
She is, and I think that's the only reason why she is his prisoner, because I'm sure she could have escaped. Come on, it's the Master.
Yeah, she escaped being disintegrated by.
Willing,
she
She wasn't willing. She would have got out.
Yeah.
It's
I like. Yeah, it's the rule of comic books, soap operas, and science fiction. If you don't see the body, they're not. They could not be dead.
Right.
So yeah, I like that dynamic, and I like her dynamic with Clara, because Clara was when the show was, these were very new, and Clara was Jenna Coleman was with Matt Smith. she was not well liked. She was very you either loved her or hated her kind of character. It's one of those things, like the Jodie thing. You either loved it or hated her for whatever reason, good or bad. And people just thought, she's just a plot device. Well, all characters in a play are plot device. The Doctor's a plot device. His character and how he's written, the way he's written is to tell the story in the way the writer and director want it told. But I love Jenna Coleman with Capaldi. I think they really sing, especially in this season, the second season. Because his first season is my least favorite of all Modern Who. There's some ones in there that are Kill the Moon, Forest, the one where the plants take over the Earth. They're just some episodes I don't really grab me. But I love this season a great deal.
Yes. Yes. I mean, their first season together, there was a lot of friction, which was good, I think, because it gave some, motion. But she was always lying, and that really annoyed me. I really did not like the how she just could not tell the truth at any point. But now, this is the first episode where they have worked through their differences, and their friendship is the stronger for it, and they really trust each other, and that works beautifully. I really like that. I like it when the companion trusts the Doctor even when they don't understand what he's doing, because if you don't trust this alien, why are you in the TARDIS with him? What are you doing?
Yeah, I get what you mean, because she is, and I like that she becomes his teacher. That the aspect of making her a teacher, I thought was a brilliant move. But one, because, and having her being at Coal Hill School, the show, where it all started, was very neat. I've never, no offense to Samuel Anderson, who played Danny, or Jenna Coleman, they just didn't vibe to me on screen. I liked them as separate characters, but I never really bought the romance. I don't think they had that chemistry you need between two actors to make you believe that these two people who may not even like each other, they're just co-workers on a show, are madly in love.
Sure.
But yeah, I get that about the line, because in this next season is very much just they're in a groove. They're doing so much better as a team, and I've always said that Capaldi and Moffat had a plan for his Doctor, because he asked, "Am I a good man?" He's very standoffish and a little darker in the first season. He's much lighter in this season. He's not wearing he's wearing a hoodie, and he's joking around, and then in his final season, he is a good man. He's you know what I mean? There is a slow growth of his character, which you don't normally see in the Doctor.
Yeah, absolutely. That's why, he's fantastic. But to go back to the teacher thing, I think it really works because he is so alien, and so because he is so, his head is somewhere else. She can help him with the small things that he oversees, like he can't tell people's ages. He can, there's a lot of things that are on a human level that he's not aware of anymore, or he can't really see very clearly. And this is where she can be complementary to him and help him see these things again. Because sometimes, a lot of times actually, this is an annoyance that comes over and over in various Doctors on TV or in the audios. You have the writers really put the human companion in the position of the human knows best. And I'm like, no. You have this alien who is hundreds or thousands of years old, who's seen the universe. I'm sorry, you're not going to stand there as a little human who is 19-year-old and tell him, I know better than you. That does not work for me. But in this case, because he is too cosmic, I can buy that there are things that he needs her for to bring him back to Earth sometimes.
Yeah, I do like that.
So in that sense, I think they...
Yeah. Doesn't she give him flashcards at some time for small talk? I love that. And he's grabbing the wrong one. He's like, what?
Flashcards properly.
One of my favorite Doctor Who lines of all time is one of Capaldi's. It's in Asylum. Is it Asylum of the? No, it's Into the Dalek.
Yes.
Where someone asking who are, and see, he's
Yeah.
being rude, and she goes, she's my carer, so I don't have to.
No, she's like, I'm his carer, and he's like, yeah, she cares, so I don't have to.
I love that. I had to explain that.
That's brilliant. That is so brilliant, and I love that they still bicker, but it's really very affectionate bicker at this point, and you know that at this point she really trusts him for the important things. And I think that's really, which doesn't mean she's not going to bicker with him and kick him in the shins if he annoys her. But, the core is there. The core we can rely on. And that's important because as the viewer, you're going on this journey with them. You want to know that they're a functional team that will get you out of trouble. Otherwise, it's like,
Yeah, I mean, because, and what gets me about this one almost wouldn't have been a Clara season because she originally was not coming back. She was done.
Right, yes.
Yes. And I'm glad that the two-parter at the end of his first season, which I've got some issues. I'm not a big fan of the finales for the most part. Sometimes I don't think they try to go big and just tell a good story. Just tell a good story. But we almost didn't have her.
Yes.
And I think that her last Christmas being her last stories would have been, I don't think it would have been a good exit for her. I do like her. I think they really are. They're rocking and rolling as a duo in the season, because what's after? See, I'm a terrible Doctor Who fan. I used to have all the things memorized. I can't remember what's next after which is familiar.
The under the lake.
God, I love that two-parter.
It's great.
It's great. That is so good. See, that's what's so good about this season is that there are some. He had given up on the two-parter, and then he kind of leaned into it in a way because he didn't want to do two-parters. Moffat didn't want to do two-parters, but I think I like scary Doctor Who. I like the English version of a horror story, which in American horror is monsters and blood and gore. Theirs is a little subtler. It's ghosts and odd. And ghosts that may not be the dead, but may be an alien or maybe something else.
Right. Right.
But they're so good they're so good in the season, and the three of them. Well, the four. It's really It's what they would call a four-hander in a play, where you only have four because there are only really four characters.
Yes.
Even the guy who was in the little mini episode that leads into this. But you've got the two double acts going on, and there's so much going on between them, and it's so well acted. I don't think this is one of Moffat's strongest scripts. It's really what struck me odd about it is we spend a lot of time in that one room with him and the Doctor and Davros. We jump out to other people, but the Doctor really, except at the beginning and the end, he is in that room with Davros, and it's just the two of them, which I think's amazing.
Yeah, I think if I recall properly, the reason he wrote this episode is he wanted them to finally have this conversation, because it was always before they encountered each other really quickly before. And Moffat really wanted to see how would that play out if they were stuck in a room together and they had to talk, these really old enemies.
I like that. It's something that...
it's a very subtle episode. It's really, it's not bang in your face, wow, as some episodes are, but it really bears rewatching because what I realized when I watched it again 2 days ago, when I watched these two, is like, it's deception within deception. Everybody's lying. Actually, no. Missy is the only one not lying. Missy is completely who she is from the beginning. 1, I want to save the Doctor. 2, I am not good. I will kill you if I can. She's straight, not deceiving anybody.
Oh yeah, I forgot about the trick to get Unit involved so she could get Clara. Bring 8 snipers.
She is deceptive. Right.
She told right from the beginning.
So Missy is being herself, exactly as you expect. But the Doctor, he knows it's a trap. He goes anyway. At what point does he start putting on an act so that to be deliberately brought into this trap so that he could, in his turn, entrap Davros.
Yeah,
You know?
exactly.
And
Because he's seen the kid, then he's gone to the the Dark Ages, or wherever he is in the past, and then here. And I think he is manipulating Davros, but there's this moment right before he's tied up in the machine to send the regeneration energy out, where he Davros says something about mercy. And you see Capaldi just kind of purses his lips. He just does something with his face where you know he's remembering that time he didn't show Davros mercy. The child, he's remembering that. And he twinges a
yes,
bit. Like, oh. And then there's a whole regeneration energy. You know, he's giving him a little and he does it. And then it's when Clara says mercy when she's trapped inside the Dalek.
yeah,
He's like, you should know that word. Why would
yeah.
Davros program that word in you? And then when they're having the conversation on the hilltop overlooking the TARDIS,
That's what
it
he
came up
realizes.
again, and he runs away to go show Davros mercy. He goes,
Exactly.
and because I don't think at any point that was his plan to go back. His plan was to
No,
confront his enemy on his deathbed and be gone and leave.
right. Well, I agree. At no point in the entire story did he know he had actually saved Davros until the very end. This is
Because because
kind
he
of like
hadn't timey-wimey. He hadn't gone back to do it.
exactly. He had to go through this entire thing in order to complete this original story, which is quite recent for him. But throughout, he still carries the guilt that
Left a
he is
child. You
responsible
think,
for creating Davros because he left him. You know, he asks early on, like, who created Davros? And you can tell that he thinks he created him by leaving him there on the battlefield. So that is the kind of if you want, a layer that is throughout the entire story. But this other layer of Davros is looking for him. He thinks he knows he expects it to be a trap. He goes. He thinks his Davros is pretending to be dying, etc. There are so many points in the story where he could have twigged that this is a trap and decided to do what he ended up. At what point did he know from the start? Did he find out halfway? And it's really interesting because throughout, you have this long conversation where Davros really goes, melodramatic, and I want to see it with my own eyes and all that, and you're kind of like, oh god, this is very uncomfortable. But throughout that whole thing, so the Doctor is play acting as himself. He is acting the part of what Davros thinks he is, while all the while kind of basically has his eye on him, and he's waiting for the moment where he's going to be asked to, So the whole thing was these pipes. At first, Davros offers him to commit the genocide of the Daleks again. He offers it to him as a temptation, like, you could just hold on to this and kill them all. And that doesn't work. So we go into the whole melodrama and, and I'm dying, thinking, the Doctor will probably give me some regeneration energy and he's going to be trapped. And at this point, by then, the Doctor knows exactly this is what's going to happen. And the interesting thing is, he triumphs, he overcomes the whole plan by giving Davros exactly what he wanted, because he hadn't thought this out. So and it's very interesting, the whole time he is play acting, and he ends up not fighting him off, but by giving him what he wants. And so Davros is his own he basically defeats himself. Yeah, exactly. And it's like, whoa, and you can go back and watch it, and the threads interconnect in different ways, and was it this, was it that, and it's really complex, but it's very subtle.
yeah.
So
I think I had forgotten about that. It was like, because he gives Davros exactly what he wants, and at what point does he know what Davros wants? And I think it's something, and I'm, maybe next time I'll catch it. Where is that moment the Doctor figures it out?
I think, but of course I could be wrong. I think it's when he shows him this machine with the pipes, and he says, yes, it's whatever, with a genetic component. I think that's when he realizes what it does, and Davros is trying to tempt him into using it to get rid of all the Daleks.
Okay. That would make.
I think
I know. I get that. That's what I like about Capaldi's Doctor, and I like about Moffat's two doctors is they're very alien.
yes.
When Matt Smith was announced, I was, who is this baby? He's a baby. My friend looked at me and goes, "Are you now old enough to be the doctor's dad?" And I was like, "You can shut up." Uh, um, Especially when I found out me and Matt Smith share a birthday. But he brought that alienness to it, that kind of
He did.
childlike alien, where
Yes.
Capaldi is the old weary traveler alien. So they're geometrically they're totally different
They
ends of the
are.
spectrum. Where Tom Baker is somewhere in the middle, in a way because they're the
Hmm.
kind of the ones I
Hmm.
consider the most alien. I think Jodie did it is alien. She did it a bit alien, but some of them become too human.
Yes, they do. And it's not that they're not lovable characters or fun or great. It's just that they're too human. Um, that's my main issue with Nshuti, who is absolutely lovely. He's wonderful and he's a fantastic actor. But they're writing him so human that I can't find the Doctor in there anymore.
I think he's getting there. I think it's going to be a slow
Mm,
burn. I have a feeling. I
possibly.
like that he cries, but I also like that
Yeah,
he
I
doesn't
do so.
show it. He doesn't
Yeah,
show like he turns his back to her and has the cry.
sure.
But it's a very. This is where I think we're in uncharted territory with Doctor Who. I think Davies
Yeah,
is
sure.
put. I think he's
I
pushing the
agree.
envelope. He's like, eh,
We can look back. We can look back in a season or two.
yeah.
But for
Well,
instance,
that's yeah, but that's
Captain
kind of what I
Marvel,
do. Yeah, I think so. Because I I covered Jodie when they were new, but I'm going back now that she's completed. She's in the rotation because I do the show. We go
yeah.
like next episode will be a Jodie episode. It'll be Ghost Monument
Mhm.
because I'm revisiting those now 5 years out to
Yeah.
kind of go, do I still feel the same way?
Absolutely.
Because
Yeah.
at one point and something I discovered doing this podcast is how art is not a static thing. Um,
Hmm.
how we absorb art and how we interact with art changes based on the first when we see it, what's going on in our life when we see it, what's going on in our world when we see it, what's happening in just that day will affect the art on
Mm.
our viewing. So when you reevaluate something by going back, like you rewatch it and you catch new things. I hadn't rewatched when New Who came back. Every time a season ended, I'd rewatch everything. And when right before a new season was coming out, I'd rewatch everything. But it got to a point where I don't have time to rewatch 9 seasons. I've got other things to watch. I've got I've got a wife. I've got work. I'm not gonna be able to sit and
Yeah.
binge. So I haven't watched some of the Capaldis multiple times, unless it's been like for the podcast. And it was
Yeah.
nice to go back and look at this one because I really the previous season was so up and down for me that I kind of like when this one came out, it's like I hope I enjoy this season more, and I do because it starts with this one and it just builds to the end, and I think it is a great
Mm.
season, and
Hmm.
then Capaldi's last season I think is a masterpiece in a lot of ways.
Mm.
One because he
Yes.
chose to reboot, kind of refreshing by bringing Bill in,
Right.
and that was Clara had been around for a long time. Now she is the longest
Mm.
timeline from first show to last show companion. I think.
Okay.
I think still maybe
Yes, I think so. I think
so.
so.
But art changes when you observe it every time. I mean, I was a theater person. People complain, why do they remake movies? They're not. They're just doing. They're doing what you do in theater. I mean, we still do Shakespeare. It's different
Yes.
now than it was when Shakespeare alive. I read a book about how Hamlet changed from the story he ripped off, and then its history as being performed. Like, well, okay, Elizabeth's in power. You know, Hamlet's the hero. James is in power. No, not so much. So it had to change in politics and countries. When it came to America, we did it differently and all this stuff. So art has to be, art is not static. You look at a paint, two people can look at the same painting. One sees nothing. They see that is not art. I do not, that to me does, it's like I'm one that says is, I don't like when a person goes, I'm an artist. Are you a painter? Are you a sculptor? Are you an actor? Are you a writer? Are you a director? Are you a singer? That's what you are. That is your craft. Art is for your audience, and it is subjective, meaning two people could be looking at the same thing, watching the same story, and get totally different things out of it. They're going to find what they need from it or what sparks them. And that's what, what I really like about shows like Doctor Who and Star Trek and Buffy and other ones, that when I rewatch them, because they're so well crafted, that I get something new each time. And that's one reason I started to do the podcast in 2017, because I had a bad breakup and I wanted something to occupy me. And so me and my best friend started a Doctor Who podcast, because she didn't want to watch Doctor Who. She picked up New Who when she had when she had a baby and needed something to watch while she was walking a crying baby around in the middle of the night. And she got to Empty Child, and she called me the next day. Okay, damn it, you bastard! I hate you. You turned me on to baseball. Now you turned me on to this. I was like, sorry. And then when I showed her, I wanted her to do New Who. She did Old Who. She didn't want to do it. So I went, just watch the pilot with me. You will appreciate how good that pilot in 1963 was. I think it's one of the best pilots ever made. It is. You created a generational television show in that 28 minutes, and your first try and your second try are still better than a lot of pilots for shows that are out today, because you didn't do all the piloty things where you have to do all this exposition. You just kind of introduced. You just said it's a time machine. Okay, no explanation needed. But I tricked her. I said I brought the DVD box set and said, before we watch the pilot, I want you to watch the making of, because she's on how the sausage is made kind of person. Right. You know, why did they do it? That she's a musician, so it's very mathematical and every notes, and you have to hit it the right way, blah blah blah. And I'm like, I was an actor. You take what you're given and stuff changes. You work on your feet. But she saw how cheaply they made it, and she went, wait, pause it. They said 2,500 pounds, and she went in and cut a Google calculator, and then adjusted it for $2,007, and she went, they did that on $25,000? I went, it's guerrilla theater. And she was hooked from there out, because she stopped paying attention to the dodgy costumes of the sets, and that she was watching it on a 40-inch television screen, because her perception of it changed. She was enamored by that challenge that was put in front of them. How do we create good television with no money and no time? And she had seen, I worked for a very small gay theater company, and I had to build sets for $100. Weird things. Build a set for, you have $200. Here's some old stuff. Do what you got to do. So I really appreciate it, but it changed your perception, and I think rewatching stuff changes your perception on the second viewing, the third viewing, and this viewing, all that long story made longer, was everything, all the subtlety of this I had never really realized until I did the rewatch a little bit, and I was paying more attention to it, and I tried to watch it twice, but I only had time to watch it like 1.5. Right before we recorded, I watched the last 30 minutes of the second part, because I wanted to make sure I didn't miss anything, and I did. I felt I had. But the subtlety of this story, that it is basically a character piece for the bulk of it. There's a little bit of action and the big grand finale and the Daleks getting their comeuppance for the 100th time. That's all great, but that has nothing to do with the real story. The real story is the Doctor is given an opportunity to save Davros, chooses not to. It's would you kill Hitler in his crib? If you could go back in time to where he goes, no, I have to show a child mercy.
Right.
Mercy is more important than all the harm, me holding on to what makes me not human, but a civilized creature, by showing mercy, I have to take that chance of showing him mercy because it's the right thing to do. And we don't hear a conversation about it. Do you think you changed history? Do you think Davros never existed now that you showed him mercy? And I don't think I think all he knows is he's got it to the status quo. He's always done this. He just he didn't realize he had to do it. Like I think you're saying that I have to go do this.
Yes, but I don't, but so the interesting thing is he goes back, he's not thinking of the status quo at all. First of all, when he leaves him, he leaves him and then he's racked by guilt and he's clearly not, and he's not afraid to face Davros, he's afraid to face his own feeling of shame and guilt. That's the whole thing. But at the end, so there's this vignette somewhere in the middle where we see him come back with a Dalek gun and he says, I'm going to save my friend the only way I know how. And we think he's about to shoot him. And that's when he thinks Clara has died. And, it's the end of the episode where it's gone really dark and he looks like he's lost everything. And he says, Davros, why did I ever let you live? And then we see this vignette where it really looks like the Doctor's gone back in time to kill Davros, to actively kill him, not just leave him. And then at the end, we find that there's actually, because of the whole mercy thing and how did the Dalek get this word in, and he's standing there with Clara holding this gun and he realizes, oh, that's what I have to do. And he goes back and he says, I'm going to save my friend the only way I know how. And he shoots all the landmines and he takes Davros home. So basically, he shows Davros mercy to save Clara in the future, because the fact that she could make the Dalek say mercy is the only reason why he did not kill her inside the Dalek.
Okay, see, that's what I love about Moffat. That he did the layers. See, and and rewatching it doesn't trigger because I was so focused on the room with him and Davros. When those scenes popped up, I was just hyper focused on it because one, it's two actors acting their tails off. I mean, they're doing a great job, and Julian Beaches, he is just layered, and I know that had to be uncomfortable, and I don't know much about him as an actor. He doesn't have the hugest resume. I think he's a big theater actor. But he nails his portrayal of Davros is such a love letter to all his predecessors.
Yeah.
But he also brings this Davies and Moffat have allowed him more leeway as an actor to play Davros.
Yeah.
But he doesn't stray off of Davros. It's like Capaldi's he's as much the Doctor he grew up on, John Pertwee, as he is a little bit of Tom Baker, because he's the second fan to be cast. I forget. Tennant was a huge fan. Because there's that love letter to the show in both of their performances. And there's a little bit of their Doctor in each one. There's definitely a lot of Peter Davison in Tennant, even before he married. I love that Georgia Tennant pasted a meme. How many doctors does it take to change a light bulb? And it's her dad on a ladder, and David standing behind her. It's like, I love it. He was on a quiz show, and I caught it. Tennant was on a quiz show, and they started, and I forget the comedian's name. Joel something. It's like they asked a Doctor Who question, and he's like, and it's about the Fifth Doctor, and the comedian goes, "Christ, that's his father-in-law." But I think just the acting between Beach and him is so good, and then Jenna Coleman and Michelle Gomez. Because Jenna Coleman is a very still actress. She's very still. And I don't mean that in a bad way. Where Michelle Gomez cannot sit still. And I love that about her. I do love that about her. But I think Claire is an incredibly good companion. I think she is underrated. I think she's one of those ones that when we go back and look at her, where people are going to go, you know what? This is an incredibly talented actress. Look at all that she can do, and she's she's gone on to do so much stuff and so much different stuff.
Yeah.
And she was amazing as Victoria. Made
But isn't
Queen
it
Victoria a very
interesting?
sympathetic character that I didn't feel a lot of sympathy for. Um, because of historical, because of when she was queen and the way the world was. And I've been listening to a podcast called Empire, and it's very enlightening. It's Anita Annan, who is a TV presenter over there, and she wrote a book called about the Kohinoor diamond.
Oh, right.
Yeah, and her co-writer William Dalrymple, they went through. They talk about they started with the British Empire and dissected it over, but it was like a year worth of podcast. Now they're doing America, but they did Russia, they did the Ottoman Empire, and then they do little segues. And they did Victoria. They did a thing about powerful women monarchs, and they had one from, oh my God, like I don't know where it was Middle Eastern, and I think it was like early part of CE, not BCE. So I'd never heard of this person. It was fascinating how powerful she was in that far back in time. But listening to this thing about Victoria, I realized that Jenna Coleman kind of went, oh, wait a minute, she did her homework, because there are subtleties that she was not engaged with what her government was doing because she was in mourning for 30 years. So they were doing all of this horrible stuff, and she didn't kind of realize it. And she had different attitudes toward the citizens of her empire, the most polite way to put it, the people that she ruled. But it was a myopic version because she was in a bubble. She didn't understand all the subtext. So it's like, wow. And especially some with the Irish famine, which is a horrific story. But seeing Jenna Coleman play that, it was like, oh, you did your homework, because you're showing this person as a woman, not as this historical figure who has all this baggage of the horrible things she may have done, what human people have done in the past. Because human history is littered with horrible stuff, and has these glimmers of light. I think I think in most of history there's a lot of bad, us trying to figure out how to do things, and then every once in a while we find the right thing to do. In America we're going through something. Are we only a 250-year country? I mean, so I've said that to another bad Gallifrey, I must want to tangent, but I just seen that she could do her homework, and that she is so, when she has these 2 actors, and 3 counting Matt, that are just pure balls of energy, that she's still giving them something.
Yeah, but isn't it interesting that the episode's titles actually refer to Clara?
I never thought about that until you just.
She's the magician's apprentice. She is stepping in as the doctor because the doctor cannot be found. So she steps in with Unit and with Missy to go on to find him. And in the second episode, she is the witch's familiar. The witch is Missy. And she treats her like And there are several times in the episode where Missy calls her like the canary, or she uses her like bait. So it's like.
Oh my God!
And
I feel terrible as a bad nerd that I did not figure that out, and it's actually not that subtle until you just said it. Oh, I love that. Again, Moffat. It's why I love him, even when he pains me sometimes. But I don't agree with what he's done. It's just that everything for a reason. And I think rewatching this, I saw everything that happens has a reason. I mean, there are times he writes things, and I don't believe in plot holes. People go, but it has a plot hole. He likes to make you think. Like, my wife was watching it with me last night, and I paused it and rewind. She goes, why are you rewinding it? Because you're looking at your laptop for a second. You missed one of the best jokes. You didn't hear landmine. It's handmine.
Yes.
And they were. I love this. I love his silliness. And Davies did it too. They love to litter weird names, place names.
Yeah, but they're very creepy as a concept.
Oh, I forgot about the
Incredibly
eyeball.
creepy.
That was just that.
Oh my
That was
God,
so
the hands
creepy.
turn and there's the eyeball. Oh,
And did
it's
you?
horrific. You're like, how do you get out of
Oh,
this?
and I forgot
And
I'd never heard the line goes, "We're being followed by clam drones," and oh my God, it's the clam in the cave from Genesis. The styrofoam clam. It's like, Harry, how did you step in it? Why didn't you just walk around it? It's huge and orange. I love Harry because he would step in the clam, but all those things littered in it. That Moffat, and I also like the fact that the three modern showrunners are all fans.
Absolutely, man. That's why the show is so special. Everybody who works on it is a fan. It's like the whole thing is a fan project.
Yeah.
Um, there was a moment that I want to mention. So there's this moment. It's quite a lovely one when Missy calls Clara's bluff, because Clara is like, if you turn your back, I will stab you with the stick, basically. And Missy is like, oh really? Okay. And she turns her back. So she calls Clara's bluff. And it's very funny that Clara, who in the first season was the biggest liar of them all, in this episode, she is in the presence of three master liars, and she is the only one who is incapable of subterfuge, because it doesn't work.
Yeah, I never really thought about the line thing with her, and there is an uneasiness in that season for both of them. I mean, I think Moffat wanted the Doctor to stay on his back foot for the season. That even though he regenerated, he's not sure who he is anymore, because one, this is a new this is an extra life he shouldn't have. Because remember, Moffat changed the rules, so we could have another Doctor, because he had burned up one of those regenerations by creating the War Doctor, and I don't think he did the math and went, oh crap, we've run out of regenerations. But she is, and in this season she is just so good at like that, but she is, I think, I don't know if it was intentional to have Clara go from being this person who we find out makes herself the impossible girl, that she could be everywhere. She does it by deciding, oh, it's kind of like this one where the Doctor realizes he has to go and save Davros. He's like, oh no, I have to jump into this temporal storm and to be replicated because that's how I'm going to save him. Goes from that character who's unsure of what's going on, and we're not sure as viewers, to where she's got this new Doctor and she's unsure of what he is and he's unsure of his, and maybe this thing that she's a liar or something I haven't realized, and maybe that's what's making me uneasy. I thought it was mostly artistic choices, casting Sam Anderson and not seeing that there wasn't any chemistry between them.
Right.
But you can't judge that. You can only, he probably did an audition with her. He probably was just, Andy Pryor goes, this guy's, oh yeah, it's that guy from that, that play, his famous play, and blah blah blah. But yeah, I never caught that line thing. I'm gonna have to, when I do back, and this made me almost want to do a rewatch of Capaldi after I read it. Was go back and start, because I love his first story. I love his first story.
You can see the arc much better, and actually even in this season, she says, "I am a great liar," but now she's using it in a less immature way. Now she's using it, in the Terror of the Zygon two-parter. There's where she says, I am a great liar, and you can see it. She's learned to use it in a way that is useful, as opposed to just to chaotically protect herself and putting herself in more trouble, etc. So it's really interesting, because even that is growing. And I think it's really a tribute to Moffat's genius, that if you just watch these series, you would never know that she was supposed to leave after the first one, because the arc is so natural, where she grows into this companion who is really reliable, who is really she becomes kind of a doctor, and that in turn leads her to her demise and to the end of this season. And it's incredible that this wasn't planned beforehand, because you couldn't do it with a fresh companion. It wouldn't make sense that suddenly, it needed this long burn for her to grow to the point where she's almost like the Doctor, and then realize no, because she's human and she can die. You know what I mean? It's really interesting.
Yeah, no, I think I agree with you. That's it, and it's not planned, and that's that serendipity of art, especially long form. Well, actually, it's not long form storytelling because it's not one story it's telling, but these franchises where they change with their time. I'm a big Star Trek fan. A lot of people don't like modern Star Trek, and I like all of it. And all the modern shows are very different from one another. Discovery started darker, got a little warmer, and then became the most Star Trekky show I've ever seen because they hug an awful lot. They are warm and fuzzy. They love each other. It is about a group of people doing right and going out into the world to say there are better ways to do things, which is what Roddenberry wanted. In his show, in the original show, it's not even that way. It's very misogynistic at times. He is a member of the greatest generation. He's one of those people that went to war and came back and wanted something better. He's a bomber pilot. So he flew over places and dropped bombs and had to come to, and a lot of those people come back and were like, I want to put something positive in the world because I was forced to go and do terrible things. My dad was a Marine general in the U.S. Marine Corps, and he one time, when I asked him what was it like, because I was deciding was I going to go to college, would I join the Marine Corps like he did, and he joined as a private and became an officer and had a career, and he said, I can't tell you anything. There's nothing I could say to you of my experience in the 2 wars I was in that would help you. I did what I had to do, and you will do what you have to do to stay alive. That is all it is. And he was a big proponent. He ran HR, and he would talk about post-traumatic stress disorder, and his colleagues did not believe in it. And he said, no, you send boys to a bad place to do bad things, they come back broken. And it's awful. But to this thing is that things change you, and that throughout the thing that she's with the show is like Moffat and Davies, and I think Chibnall too, very much so, realize that they are telling a long form story. That the characters have to evolve. I think sometimes they do it better than others. I think with Chibnall, I think Yaz has a small journey. Tolson Cole's character, who was only on the 2 seasons, he has a real short journey, but Clara has a very long arc. And like you said, things weren't planned. It wasn't planned. Where Davies plans his. This is what Martha is like. Martha, I love Martha because she's the one.
I love Martha.
But she's the only one who says, "I'm leaving. You don't need me." They do. I like that. I get really tired of the Doctor just dumping them, or they run into somebody and fall in love. There's some really bad in Old Who. There's some really tragically badly written exits. But even Rose, who's not one of my favorite companions, I don't think Rose is a very nice person.
No.
She's a young woman who doesn't know what she wants in the world and sometimes does selfish things. Not because she doesn't know, but becomes a hero. I think Mickey has a more interesting journey a little bit. He goes from loser boyfriend to action hero, which, But I think Clara, for the modern show, has the biggest journey because Amy and Roy, they have their journey, but then they hang around for a little bit longer. Like their journey's over. They are the characters they're going to be. It becomes Rivers and the Doctor's journey at the end of that. And I don't know what to expect for anything else, but I think Clara really has the biggest arc of all the modern companions. Donna, no, that's not true. Donna has an arc. She just has that's a rough ending for her initial run.
It's a rough ending, but happily.
Yeah, luckily we get it back. Me and my friend Victoria, we had a lot of debates, heated, friends getting loud. Like what the Doctor does to her is horrible. Yes, and he knows it's horrible, but he has to do it to save her life. He has to make the difficult decision and it's going to do harm to him internally to do it. You can't have a story where you can't just have he violates her. It's a violation. What stealing her memories of him is a horrible violation.
Sure, but she's dying in front of his eyes.
Yeah,
What's he gonna,
exercise those memories and save her life and deal with the guilt.
I mean,
and I think that's the point of the thing
is to judge.
Huh?
It's easy to judge when you're not in that situation.
Yeah, I mean the horrible things, and Moffat fixes it. Or there's one after Bill's first adventure when he goes to wipe her mind.
Mm-hmm.
And he's had his mind. He knows he's had his mind wiped about Clara. He just knows the name, but he doesn't remember. He doesn't remember her. She's this thing in the back of his mind. And she goes, "What would you like it if someone did it to you?" And he goes, and that I love that moment where he pulls back and goes, "All right, one night." One night, and then he walks away, and he never does it because, oh my God, what if I did this to Donna? I think it was more about than having his mind wiped and losing Clara. It was that, oh my God, I did that to somebody else, and someone's done it to me. I'm not going to do that again. I can't, because he saw he felt the violation. And I like it that he doesn't tie it up in a bow, but it gives more context to what he did.
Yeah, I mean, he's not going to do it lightly. Let's put it this way, because Bill was not dying. It was just a question of,
I don't need someone around who knows that I have a time machine.
No, okay, you can keep your memories. There was no life and death situation, so he decided not to do it without a good reason. But for the Donna thing, I mean, look, my brother's a ER doctor, and if somebody's there and having a heart attack, they don't go, oh, well, we're not going to violate. They tear his clothes off, they open his chest, and they give him a hand massage. And, you cannot have a bigger violation than that. There's blood all over the place.
You don't know what this person's beliefs about her medicine are.
It's a thing, but that or death.
Yeah. I work in a hospital. And one of the my department's made up of the 2 call centers I manage and emergency management. And I've sit in meetings where we talk about things like, wow, we're a huge hospital. I mean, 1,000 beds. And the things that the docs, you listen to the emergency, I'll be on emergency committee stuff, and it's just like the things that they have to go through and the things we plan for. It's insane.
Yeah.
And, making choices like that. And it's, growing up around the military and hearing my dad didn't talk about it, but hearing some veterans do it. And there's a veteran that works with me who served in the Middle East, and he is damaged by it. And every once in a while, he'll tell me,
I was in the Middle East. I am damaged.
But he would. I don't expect him to ever tell me a story. I don't ask me to tell. I don't. He does. Don't ever ask someone to tell them their story. If they share it with you. He shared 2 with me, and after the first one, I said, I really appreciate the fact that you felt you could share that incident with me, but I haven't slept well since. And he goes, yeah, I know. I don't sleep well. I fucking hate what I did. And he does not forgive himself for any of it. And I was like, man, he doesn't. He's a very devout Catholic. And he goes, I'm going to hell. Yeah, I was like, no, you're not, dude. If there is, I don't believe. I'm a lapsed Anglican. I said, dude, I don't even believe in heaven and hell anymore. Hell's a construct made up by white men to keep people under their thumb. I think that's a made up thing. Don't worry about it. Because he's damaged, and it just very, anybody who's been through that. I'm very fortunate. I grew up in. Where I am. I can't imagine it. And that's why when I see stories like these I like that they're honest in the show about trauma. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
Well, so when they, like you said, right back to Donna, it's like that sometimes trauma is necessary. In that, it's
sometimes it's unavoidable. I mean, it really annoys me when fans judge the Doctor from a very narrow perspective, a very narrow human perspective of this society where we judge everything. He said the wrong word, or he didn't do the thing that a human is expected to do in a Western society, specifically, he doesn't behave exactly the way that they think a good person should behave, and they judge it. It really annoys me because first, there are bigger things. Second, this is an alien who has seen a lot, done a lot, and has to make, he's the one making all the hard decisions. And it's so great that there is actually this episode that kind of addresses it, the Mummy on the Orient Express, which I love. It's a gorgeous
Oh yeah, it
episode.
is. It's that happy mix of
Beautiful.
Hercule Poirot and Doctor Who at the same time. That's
Right. It's brilliant in its own right, but there is also the thing where Clara is really, really pissed off at him because he was ready to sacrifice somebody to save the rest. And at the end, she realizes, and he tells her, look, sometimes all the choices are bad, and you still have to choose. And I'm the one who has to choose, and it's not enviable. So, don't judge
yeah.
him.
It's
You either trust him or you don't.
There's this thing, and Doctor Who fandom and Star Trek fandom is a good example of it too, where the fans want their heroes to be perfect. No, there is no such thing as perfection. Perfection is a concept. It doesn't exist. It's an end goal. I don't know. I work for nurses, and they're perfectionists.
And that's not the point.
Yeah, it's not.
That's not being perfect is not the same as being good. And again, that's the whole thing about am I a good man? And she says, I don't know, but I know you're trying. And what else is there? What can you say? Yes, I know I am a good person. You never
No,
do.
you
All you
strive to
can do
do
is
it.
always try to.
It's
do.
oh God, what's it in a Doctor Who? But there's this one. It's like, oh no, it's in Ted Lasso. It says you go into the world and you just try to be good every day. It's
Right,
and
exactly.
you succeed some days and you fail, and every time you fail, you learn something, so you can move forward and be better, uh, do good the next day. You learn from it. I worked with an
Exactly.
addict
And
one time, and that philosophy kind of stuck with me, and I like that one. Every day is,
mm,
an addict wakes up every day. Today I will not use. So every
yes,
day I
yes,
will
yes,
try
yes.
to do good. I may not succeed.
Exactly. And that's what the doctor is. He's completely selfless. He is this person who will always put himself in danger to save somebody else, even if that somebody is his enemy. Always, without fail, right? He always puts himself in harm's way for the sake of someone else. So why are people going like, oh, but he called this person that, or he didn't treat Martha well, or whatever? Like, what? You're kind of missing the big
Yeah,
picture
yeah.
here. You know?
There was what was it in the Jodie one where Bradley Cooper, um, um, Graham's character was telling her about his fear of cancer, and she goes, and she's not. But people go, well, she should have given him a hug, and that's like this is not that. This incarnation of that doctor is uncomfortable with human emotions, and she does what a lot of us do. What do you do when your friend says, I have cancer, or a loved one has cancer? What do you say? I mean, there's nothing like, when someone tells you something terrible happened to them and you've not had that life experience, what do you say? You don't, sometimes you just say, hey, if you just want to talk about it and say it out loud, I'll listen. I don't have anything, I'm not going to be able to make it better, but sometimes just saying it, listening, and she does that. She listened and she goes, let's go on an adventure. It's different. The doctor isn't us. And sometimes,
And it's also, yeah,
no,
sorry.
go ahead.
No, but and it's also even in real life, every person has their own way to show they care. You cannot go and say, "Oh, you should have done it this way." We're all different. Pick up on the intention behind the reaction, whatever the reaction is. And people have really become very attached to form and to this is what you should say, this is what you should do, blah blah blah. Instead of going, well, this is this person's way of showing me they care. This is how they do it. They don't say anything. They go and make me a cup of tea. I don't know. But you kind of, we're losing this connection where you actually pay attention to what a person is saying in their own way and how they're being a friend in their own way. And I think we're seeing that projected onto the doctor in this kind of discourse.
Yeah, this is one reason I don't sometimes in Dr. Twitter discourse I don't jump in, because sometimes I want to be I'm older than a lot, I'm an older fan. I'm going to be 60, and I don't expect Doctor Who to look like it did when I first saw it. It's an unrealistic expectation, and I also don't want that from my art and my entertainment. I want it to reflect now, and the world is way different
Yes.
now. I mean, it's way different than it was pre-COVID. The world changes, so I don't expect it to be. I don't want it. So I see sometimes where people are very, not all younger fans, but some of them who people have grown up with this internet, where you and I, two people from different sides of the world, are going to have a conversation about a show from a country that is not our native country, and how
Yeah.
we both have different takes on it. So I see that, but some of them it's like, well, he should be this, and I mean, we call it PC, or political correctness or whatever. That it's like, no, you can't. Don't make your heroes perfect. That's an unrealistic expectation, and also, like you said, people behave differently to different things.
But also perfect according to whom? Because today's perfect behavior, 2 years from now, it will already be outdated. So there's no point at all. And I think people who think that way are actually very young and don't actually have that much experience. That is what because I'm going to be 45. I have seen a lot.
Yeah. It's
take on
yeah,
things.
I mean, and in I've people that are younger than me have kids, and they're very protective. I said, I said, when I was a kid, we were feral. My mother threw us out of the house at 9 o'clock. Go run around. I will yell when you can come home to eat. Do not come in my house.
Right.
Go away. I have things to do. You're not in school. Get out. Go out and play. So the internet is a great thing, and I joke about it all the time. The internet has given us this open line to communications and information. It's great. But it's also made everybody think they're the smartest person on the planet. They're the prettiest person on the planet. And God forbid that they can sing. And none of those three things are true. No. It's like, it's because, and we're faceless in it. One problem I kind of have with social media, and I had during the pandemic, it got bad, and I had to turn off all but podcast related social media, because it's anonymous. It's this thing about anonymity is important. And I said, not in a public discourse. I think you need to put your face. That's why my face is on my Twitter things, and because it's me. If I'm saying it, it's coming from me. But there's this thing. But I think a lot of people grew up, especially these poor kids that had to go to cool school for 3 years during COVID, where they're in a bubble. It's like, I mean, when I went to school, you just went to school and you're thrown into a class with 30 kids that you didn't know the year before, and you have to not kill each other. You have to learn to get along, because the teachers only has so much refereeing ability. So I think that's missed, and I think some of this, as we get as civilization loosely, sometimes I'm not feeling that we're that civilized right now, comes in fits and starts, where after the Second World War, a lot of places strive to be better. And now we're striving to be selfish again, which is, I find, incredibly depressing. But it's the same with what you're saying with Doctor Who. You want to be this. You're not perfect. Don't ask them to be perfect.
Yeah, exactly.
That's it. It's like, because we all have flaws. And we're not all perfect every day and all day. And it would be dull storytelling if he could fix it all with the snap of a finger.
It would be so dull. I don't want a perfect guy. I want somebody who is not perfect, who is plagued with his stuff or her stuff, and is still trying to be better.
Yeah. Well, that's it. The doctor makes you better.
That's what we ask from people. Yeah, who really always will do the right thing, even if they're not capable of speaking politely to somebody. I don't care about politeness. I always say politeness is what you use with your enemies.
Yeah, I get in a little trouble because I've got a mouth like a sailor, as my mother would put it. My mother would go, "Where did you learn to swear?" Excuse me, lady. I've heard you swear. But I'm not big on, sometimes I'm going to say things that, are going to upset you. I mean, I have employees sometimes that go, because you needed to be told that. I'm sorry if it hurts your feelings. It has no value of good or bad. It's just a statement. You're putting a value. Don't put values on. Think about the context. Take a moment when someone says something to me. Sometimes, especially some hard truth, I used to be very kind of bark backy when I cross that line and I don't say the right thing or don't behave the right way. Tell me and I'll try to be better. But it's not going to happen. Everybody can be a little brusque and not do what the other person thinks is the right thing. But we try to do the right thing. All right, Ted, some more amazing. If you go back and listen to more Gallifrey Most Wanted, they are full of these tangents where we go off, especially me, where we go off on things. Before we go, I just wanted to thank you, but I also wanted to ask you just a quick thing. So I wanted to ask you a couple because you're newer to Who, and this was your first one. Is there an era or a doctor after Capaldi that kind of like, especially maybe say in classic Who, that jumped out at you as one you liked? And because you listened to Big Finish before you went to classic Who, you listened to Big Finish first.
Yes.
Which is a good thing. That's
and
a very
then
good thing.
based on Big Finish, I wanted to find out more about the classic. Basically, it's their fault.
That's good. I'm a huge. I don't get everything anymore, but I always get everything with Sixie and everything with Paul McGann. So because Paul McGann, I love Big Finish and I love what they've done with the show and how they have expanded the universe. So is there a classic Doctor that is?
Yeah, I mean there are a few I love, but I think 5 is one I also relate a lot to. It's kind of, I would say, the one that I have a most fondness for. But I love Pertwee, and I also really like Tom Baker.
It's hard not to like Tom Baker.
Tom Baker is most entertaining, I would say. But I love Pertwee. I think his era is
That's
just
interesting.
fantastic.
I might have to ask you back on to do my next Pertwee one, which is I don't know which one it is. Hold on, because I think all over while I get my episode guide. Wrong one. Sorry, folks. We're going to listen to me fall out of a chair as I reach over to grab my Doctor Who episode guide. I had to buy a new one because my other one was so beat up. But to see a modern 21st century woman, because a lot of times Pertwee, because he can be very paternal. I don't like to say very, he is very paternal. And I get that, but the next one's a time monster. Ooh, Benson in a diaper. So if you want, think about that, because sometimes it's hard for me to find a third Doctor, because I think sometimes in modern viewing, some people have, doctors go in and out of fashion. But I get that.
Yes,
but I like that.
sure.
To be honest, Peter Davison was the first new Doctor I saw. I mean, I saw Tom, and then he was my Doctor. My mom had a crush on him because he was in All Creatures Great and Small, and she loved that show. So she knew him before I did. And he was my favorite Doctor until Matt Smith came along. And then I went, I'm sorry.
I think it's because of all the classic Doctors, I think he's the one who has almost a modern sensitivity to him. Like he has that vulnerability. And you can really play with the character. When a character is vulnerable or he has weak points, it makes him more interesting. There's more jeopardy. He can be hurt. That's the thing. The Fifth Doctor, you could always feel he could be hurt. Whereas the Fourth Doctor, like I said, he's very entertaining. But he always comes across as so invulnerable, nothing can touch him.
Yeah.
So there isn't that emotional connection with him.
Yeah, he's very alien. He leaned into the alien, and he'd never.
Yes. So I love him for a different reason. It's very. I'm not gonna say junk food because it's not junk food, but it's a very comfort food.
It is.
The Fourth Doctor, because there's no emotional jeopardy.
I get that.
It's just bonkers throughout.
Since that's all we had in America for such a long time, I have a little Tom Baker burnout that I've never really gotten over. But whenever I watch one of his shows, I went, now I know why we all love him, because it's just joy. And him and Sarah Jane. I mean, Elizabeth Sladen is one of the greatest. When she passed, my friend Vic, who was on was my podcast partner, she had to call me. And she says, "Are you okay?" And I went, "Nope, I am not okay on any level right now. I've been watching this video that CBBC put out to Elvis Costello singing 'She,' and cried.
Yes,
But
yes,
yeah, I
yes.
get it. But I like Pertwee. I like that era.
I love it. And I'll tell you one thing funny because when I was watching, I started watching the Fifth Doctor after, Big Finish sent me to the Fifth Doctor basically. And then I started on the fourth. I did nothing linearly, and my entire Doctor Who journey has been the most non-linear timey-wimey thing possible. And I was kind of from just photos of Pertwee, I was like, I don't feel like going there. He looks very patriarchal. He, doesn't look like my type of thing. And then I just tried Spearhead from Space. And as soon as I saw him in that shower, I was like, no, he's as silly as everybody else. I love
Oh,
him
no.
already. Let's
That
go.
is one of my favorite. That is one of my, I think, one of the best introduction stories because one, it's very different to everything before it,
It's fantastic.
and it
Yes,
is
and it's so silly. He's so silly. It's
well.
brilliant. I love
He's
it.
such an amazing. I find John Pertwee a very amazing man. I got a,
Yes.
because of my family history, and I find the Second World War, that era, very interesting, especially when you find out things about these people. Like, he was a comedian, and
Yes.
he was in the Navy. It's in that because my dad,
It was
I'm a
I
Navy
know.
family, blah blah blah, all that, and then to find out,
Well, I do. I'm really into World War II. I've read all the books. I'm still
people are
reading
like,
all the
you're
books.
such a
It's
liberal.
interesting.
Why do you watch all this stuff about Churchill? Because he's an amazing person. Yes, we would not have agreed on a ton of stuff, but
Mm-hmm.
but that's when he was born and the way he was raised.
Right.
But he
Exactly.
saved the world. I give him more credit than even FDR. I'm not going to give Stalin any credit. Um, you
Yeah.
know,
I mean, we're back on heroes are not
yeah, I don't
perfect.
want a perfect hero. I want someone
Basically.
who's going to save the day. But to find out that
Exactly.
Pertwee was a spa was not just a
Mm.
sailor on a boat because he couldn't talk about it.
Yeah.
It's
Yes.
like
Yes.
in the Christopher Lee. It was in
He
the
was
Lord of the Rings
intelligent.
movies. I
Uh-huh.
didn't know this till I watched behind the scenes where it's the scene where he gets stabbed and Peter Jackson goes, "Well, do this," and he goes, "No, no, no, my young man. When you're stabbed in the back, you make this noise." And he made the noise, and I went, "Why?" And then Peter Jackson, "Oh my God, that's right. He was an SAS agent. They used to throw him out of planes in France, and he killed Nazis." And I was like, "Oh my!"
Oh my
And that sweet little Christopher Lee, who is a very debonair, sweet man when you see him interviewed, but his job in the Second World War is to sneak in the woods behind Nazis and kill them. And you're like,
God. Oh dear God.
and that
Yeah.
at that
Yeah.
point you kind of go, everybody on the set probably took one step to the side, and poor Brad Dorff was like, but
Wow.
yeah, but see, and I just
Yeah.
love Pertwee as a person. I love watching his son. His son's a very nice get on. I follow
Hmm.
Sean. I love Sean, his son. I would love for him to play the Third Doctor. Just do one, have a flashback, and let Sean, because he's aging into his dad.
Yeah. I know he doesn't want to, but
I
yeah.
think it would be cute. I do like it that he's dressed up though, and he's good. He's my favorite. He's one of my. I'm a big comic fan, and he is one of my two favorite Alfreds because he played
Mm.
Alfred
Hmm.
because him and Andy Serkis both play him the way he should be played. He's a soldier. Alfred was a
Okay.
soldier and then a butler.
Right.
So,
Yes.
but he's great. Another tangent. So I thank you so much for coming on. It's just been
Oh,
a
thank you.
joy. It's a very long episode. And I don't care. I put long ones up, but I would love to have you come back. And if you are interested in talking John Pertwee and the Time
Yeah.
Monster,
Time Monster. I like it. I quite like it
oh
actually.
no, good, good. So
So
you need to
yeah.
get on Joe's. I'll mention to Joe. I might reach out to Joe. Do you listen to Joe Ford's Hamster with
I do, and I met him at Big Finish Day the other day, and we did talk about
Good, good, good,
doing a
good, good.
podcast.
I
So,
love being on his show. I love being on the show.
but do give him a nudge. That's fine.
I was very lucky. He let me do the Fugitive Doctor, the introduction of.
Right.
Oh, and then I did the Crimson Horror, which is one of my favorite
Okay.
Mark Gatiss ones, and one of my
Mm.
favorite Patton. It's a good Clara episode too. She gets to be the hero because the Doctor's on the sidelines. But I'd love to have you
Mm.
come back. So where can folks find you, or on the interwebs, or anything, or such like that?
Oh well, my online presence is related to my work, which is a whole different planet. So I'm not sure But if you go to, well, I am on Twitter as Joumana, Joumajnouna. I'm kind of all over Twitter, so you can't kind of miss me if you wanted to. I would point people for my Doctor Who. Well, I've kind of.
Or it can be outside of Doctor Who. I like a good recommendation for something outside of Doctor
Who. Well, okay. So I will say very briefly, my actual work is I'm an artist scholar specialized in medieval Arabic calligraphy and art technology, which is as niche as it comes. It's so niche there are no books. I'm the one writing the books. Literally, I'm the one writing the books. So, and my website for all of that is majnouna.com. So majnouna.com.
I will check it out. I'm a big.
And that's
I saw some of the work, and I was very interested. I'm the type of person who turns on YouTube and will watch any documentary. You know, I'm jealous of England that you have archaeological digs everywhere.
Oh, and old libraries and old manuscripts.
America, we go, it's old, it's 200 years old. It's like, ooh. You know, and I live in the state with the oldest, we've had the most white people longest, us in Massachusetts. Because I'm right, where I live is basically, Richmond is where the Jamestown settlers decided to move to because there were too many mosquitoes in Jamestown. There's a county right next to us called Henrico, and this area was called Henricus at some point, but we have archaeological digs, but not like that. I'll watch Time Team in a loop. It's insane. My wife is like, "What are you watching? Archaeological digs?" What? So, all right.
I have been archaeological digs in Lebanon.
I have a friend who went to see some on when she went on a vacation, and she went to Jordan and Lebanon, and she sent back beautiful pictures. And it was neat. I hate to say it, I was a military brat whose Marine children do not get overseas stations because Marines only go overseas if they're shooting at people, or they're guards at an embassy. And my dad was none of the. He was at my lifetime. He was an admin. He had stopped having to go fight. And I grew up outside of DC, so it was dull. And I've never been out of the country. I was talking to another podcaster, I had to cancel podcast, and I said, we were talking about, I need to win the lotto so I don't have to work. And he says, don't we all? And I said, well, if I ever got what I call FU money, I had enough money where I could tell my boss, bye, peace out, bye, never seen me again, I would move to Scotland. Just pick up and move back, move to Scotland, because I think I would, and that would be a nice retirement. Just go to archaeological digs. It's not hot. Where I live is incredibly hot and humid.
It's not hot in Scotland, that's for sure.
It's going to be 100 degrees here today. 100 degrees Fahrenheit.
Oh my God,
and
no.
80 or 90% humidity.
Oh God.
Oh God, no.
It's awful. I go to visit my stepmother. She lives in Arizona. It's 114, but it's a dry heat. It's 114. So she lives in the desert. So, all right. Thank you so much for coming on. It was a wonderful conversation. I had such a good time, and that's what I hope the show is about. And I hope you had a good time too.
I did. Great first.
Well, I feel privileged that you were my first guest, and thank you for coming on. All right, folks. Hey, as always, thanks for listening. Hey, and we look forward to seeing you somewhere in time or space.